two-part question, or the next one after that, and I will start with you. The Fourth Amendment to the United States Constitution is the part of the Bill of Rights that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures and requires any warrant to be judicially sanctioned and supported by probable cause. The Supreme Court has justified the violation of our Fourth Amendment rights as long as you tell people when you're doing it. Do you feel the sobriety checkpoints actually do any good, and are they just a legalized Fourth Amendment violation? The second part of the question, if elected sheriff, would you continue these sobriety checkpoints?
Well, I myself have not worked ever one of those events. I have a small business that I have occupies my time on the other side, although now I've kind of stopped doing that, busy campaigning. Are they effective? I think they are effective. I do think they are effective. They, they're every night of the week right now. There's somebody that could be or potentially is driving impaired. And the intention is to curb that. I know they're well publicized. When you read them in the paper, they put them out there, and people know that they're out there. The fact that we're out there, and I think people need to understand that we just need to stop doing that type of activity. It's not safe for our children. It's not safe for me. It's not safe for any of us to be out on the road sober when we have other people out driving impaired. So yes, the answer to that question in a nutshell is yes, they are effective. And you're going to have to repeat that second one, please.
Second part of the question, if elected sheriff, would you continue these sobriety checkpoints?
Yes, I would. I think they are an effective tool. Although, like I said, I have not worked them, but they are effective to keep people from just doing negligent things and keep our roads safe. So, yes, I would continue that.
John, would you like the question repeated?
Okay, please.
First part of the question, the First Amendment to the United States Constitution is the part of the Bill of Rights that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures and requires any warrant to be judicially sanctioned and supported by probable cause. The Supreme Court has justified the violation of our Fourth Amendment rights as long as you tell people when you're doing it. Do you feel the sobriety checkpoints are actually doing any good, or are they just a legalized Fourth Amendment violation? Second part of the question, if elected sheriff, would you continue the sobriety checkpoints?
That's a very good question. I was the DUI task force commander for all of LaPorte County for approximately 10 years, so I've got a lot of background when it comes to that and a lot of insight as well. The Supreme Court has laid out the parameters for the sobriety checkpoints, so who would know better their constitutionality than the Supreme Court itself? I do believe that they are constitutional as long as the guidelines that the Supreme Court set forth are followed. However, with that being said, if elected sheriff and as former DUI task force commander, I think they're effective in one regard. They're effective in that they're a deterrent. They're not effective in removing impaired or intoxicated drivers from our roadways. And I know that because traditionally in LaPorte County, we utilize saturation patrols. Saturation patrols are areas that we identify where we have a high frequency of operating while intoxicated arrests, operating while intoxicated related crashes, and so we'll go and we'll saturate a particular area. Also places where there's great likelihood for there to be drinking. If there's a festival where perhaps there's a concert or there's a beer garden, we would go and saturate that particular area. I know from doing statistical review, there's no better way of removing drunk drivers from the roadway than to saturate an area and remove the drunk drivers after we stop them from probable cause that we've established due to their driving behavior. I think from a deterrent standpoint, I know that when we put out word and we're required by the Supreme Court to announce that we're having sobriety checkpoints, that's a huge deterrent. However, when you look at the statistics and you compare how many arrests we make from a DUI checkpoint, we have very, very few. But when we have saturation patrols that go out, we have a great number of DUI arrests. Plus, I also think from a manpower standpoint and how much bang we get from our buck, when we've set up a sobriety checkpoint, it's extremely labor intensive, therefore it's extremely expensive. We can put out a lot more officers using saturation patrols than if we were to use one single DUI checkpoint. So the answer to the question is absolutely not. I would not be in favor of it, and in fact I would talk to our prosecuting attorney as well. I just don't think it's a wise use of manpower, and I don't actually think that we're removing many, if any, drunk drivers.
Steve, would you like to repeat the question?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay.
Just so it's fresh in the mind of all of us. I think I know what I want to say, but let's.
Okay. The Fourth Amendment to the U.S. Constitution is the part of the Bill of Rights that prohibits unreasonable searches and seizures and requires any warrant to be judicially sanctioned and supported by probable cause. The Supreme Court has justified the violation of our Fourth Amendment rights as long as you tell people when you're doing it. Do you feel the sobriety checkpoints are actually doing any good, or are they just a legalized Fourth Amendment violation? And the second part of the question, if elected sheriff, would you continue to employ sobriety checkpoints?
All right, first of all, remember I'm a libertarian. Okay, so when I give you my answer here, understand the philosophy of liberty that started this country. And the sobriety checkpoints, the only thing that I've been through once was a checkpoint where they were checking for the winterization of your car to see if you were all ready. And I was a member of the department at that time, and I remember I knew the state policeman that waved me over. And I remember I was a young man, so I wasn't as politically objectionable to such things as I am now. But I remember being greatly incensed inside that they would pull me over. I had somewhere to go, and it really upset me. And so I'm looking at the liberty angle of it, that it's just not right to just detain people. If you get detained in something like that, ask them if you're being detained. If you're not being detained, technically, you have the right to leave. So that's something to remember when this happens. So that being said, and there's probably some other things on the Fourth Amendment that we'll get into a little bit later on. It's being quite abused here in recent years. And unless we start being aware of this and start asserting our control to change things, it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse. So we're going to have to wake up a little bit and figure out how to put a stop to some of these things. This is just another way to let us see who's in control out there,
Yes.
who that we have to obey, and that's my opinion of it. Now, they will not occur if I'm sheriff, but we will pull you over and take you in if you are driving impaired. But I think that we'll find more being on the road, observing all traffic, or I like John's answer, being in a particular area, when there's an event or something going on. That is a good use of manpower and a good use of protection for us to keep these people off the road, get them off the road. I've seen people out at 3 o'clock in the afternoon that are weaving all over the place, and we just can't have that. As too dangerous for all of us. It doesn't matter if you're a police officer in a squad car. I rode with a man once, one of the sheriff's deputies, being on the sheriff's department. We had the opportunity to go out and ride. We did a lot of things that the dispatchers today in the 911 center, they don't get to do. We were on midnights, and we were sitting at a red light, and at about 70, 80 miles an hour behind us comes this car that's just about going to hit us as we're waiting for the red light. He swerves at the last second, goes through the red light, and yes, he was smashed pretty good. So patrol, I think, is the best way to get those people off the roads.
Al, do you have a 1 minute rebuttal? John? Steve, anything more?
I do, yes. I'm a libertarian, so yes, I
You have another minute.
And I just ran across this today. I'm going to hold it up. I don't think you're going to be able to see it, but Indiana becomes a police state. Supreme Court overrules Fourth Amendment. Now, I just ran across this today, so I haven't had much time to research it, but it was from 2011. The Indiana Supreme Court basically said that in a 3-2 decision, Justice Stephen David, writing for the court, said if a police officer wants to enter a home for any reason or no reason at all, a homeowner cannot do anything to block the officer's entry. So that's correct. But now I don't know if that's gone to the U.S. Supreme Court or not, and something that I need to research a little bit more. I kind of disagree with John here a little bit. The U.S. Supreme Court basically asserted their right that they're the final answer. The Constitution does not give them that authority. Actually, the 10th Amendment gives us the authority to assert what's constitutional and what isn't.
Amen.